Good morning and welcome once again to the Eclectic Radical. As always, I'm Chris Richards, the Eclectic Radical, and joining me after a long absence while he's been focusing on his local city council race, I am rejoined by my colleague and comrade Connor Exum, Trotsky Baby on Twitter, if you guys all remember.
That's correct, yes. And the Leon Trotsky Revolutionary Newsletter, which has a new name now, the Bull Moose Party of Wyndham.
Yes,
because I like that name.
I like that Bull Moose Party of Wyndham. I mean, that really is a great way to brand yourself when you're taking on both former Bush flunkies and former Clinton flunkies in local politics.
Yes, we are. So speaking of former flunkies of the Bush and Clinton era, it's always interesting when you find these third-way Democrats, who I feel are just, light Republicans. They're the guys that really told Clinton, yeah, go make friends with Nixon. He's done his time. He's in New Jersey. Well, what more of a
There's this guy you should hire who used to work for the Republicans named Dick Morris.
That's right. And also get his speechwriters. Get Nixon's speechwriters. They did wonders during that whole Watergate. I'm surprised they didn't try to get Diane Sawyer on their team.
Pat Buchanan. I'm really surprised sometimes that Clinton didn't try to hire Pat Buchanan because that really would have.
Too hard. Pat Buchanan's a hardcore Irish Catholic. He just can't be with the non-papist.
But he was with Reagan and Nixon, who were both non-papist Nixon was worst of all. Nixon was a Quaker.
Maybe
not just a non-papist, but a dissenter.
That's true. Who knows what his thing is, but it was just too far for him to get.
Though I think we all can. I think we all can agree that from my understanding of the Society of Friends, Nixon was not a very good Quaker.
No, or a good friend to anybody.
Well, I don't know. I hear he was quite a good friend to some of his friends, and that's why some of his friends made him rich. But I don't think that's what the Society of Friends is really all about.
I know. So I was saying, it's always interesting to see the large money donors, right? The ones that are on the Democratic side start funding your Republican, conservative, Trump-loving, opposition.
But isn't that what Democrats do on the local level?
Yeah, sure.
Look over at San Francisco on the West Coast, where they've got supposed Democrats, Nancy Pelosi-loving liberal Democrats, elected Blue Jeans heir and cousin of Daniel Goldman, the pro-Trump mayor of San Francisco. Yeah. Now, what's the scariest thing of all? You've got a pro-Trump mayor in San Francisco, a pro-Trump congressman in New York who made his reputation being an anti-Trump legal consultant on MSNBC. Just double irony. He was elected, and once he is elected, he votes with the Republicans all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But he got our attention by being anti-Trump.
Oh, yeah. You talking about Josh Riley?
To oppose Trump.
You talking about Josh Riley?
No, Daniel Goldman. Daniel Goldman is a New York congressman who is cousins with San Francisco Mayor Daniel Lurie. They are related through the Levi Strauss fortune.
Well, that's that, and that right there is the real important part, right?
Yes,
the fortune. We got to keep the trust funds rolling.
Yeah, the fortune gets Goldman into Congress. The fortune gets Lurie into the mayor of San Francisco's office. The fact that it's the right fortune means they're both Democrats.
That's right.
But at the same time, they're totally Republicans.
Oh, sure. Yeah. That's
and so I imagine in a smaller town, they're even more openly Republican.
Yes, they are. They really
because that's the quote unquote rural urban divide I keep hearing about.
Yes, and it's also the ironic position where the people that they supposedly go on Fox News and everyone to tell these are the worst voters ever in the world. They're the ones that they're literally giving $1,000 to or more to become the new town supervisor.
How many people live in Wyndham, New York? Just out of curiosity.
The most current population, according to the census, is 1,708 people.
So we have a population so small that if every resident gave $1 to a candidate, it would be less than 2,000. And we're talking about one person dropping a $1,000 donation into this little tiny race in a town with less than 2,000 people.
It's the equivalent of a super donor.
Yeah, it is, because that's just such a massive
disparity,
massive disproportionate sort of. How much have you raised in your campaign?
I've raised about 1,300 total.
So you've not quite reached the $1 per resident level, but you're doing really close. I mean, that's actually pretty good, all things considered.
It is. But but think about that. Like you said, I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, my average donation's like $40.
Yeah,
so I've gotten a whole lot of them.
Yeah.
It just goes to show you that big money defines all elections.
Well, I think a dollar per voter is a good way to look at an election like this, though, because I always remember what Thomas Friedman said in his now completely discredited Pain to Neoliberalism, The Lexus and the Olive Tree, where he said that real democracy is $1, one vote. Which really is sort of giving the game away about neoliberalism when you say that honestly.
Really, it's about buying the vote. It's not.
Yeah. So in that sort of $1 equals one vote democracy, then there really should be some sort of control on how many votes any one person can have.
Right. I mean,
otherwise it's not democracy.
No, it's not. But it's not democracy at any level, really. When you have money, when you have this much money in the game.
I mean, the reason that we see this survival of local gentry in these rural areas is because it's so close to feudalism that it just works perfectly in these rural areas.
Sure, it does.
The landlords love feudalism.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's the same thing, right? I mean, you talk about affordable housing, you talk about real needs in a community, right? And you've just alienated all the wealthy.
How many of those 1,700 people are year-round residents, and how many of them are property owners with money who live somewhere else?
That is the full.
Okay, so that's the full-time population. That's good to know.
Right, that's our full-time population.
That's good.
It's hard to estimate what the real population is, because we do have somewhere around 2,500 houses now in the community, of which maybe a third of those are actually full-time residents. So you're looking at this community easily blows up on a busy holiday weekend by 3,000 to 4,000 easily. In most cases. And if it's during the winter and skiing is on, you can add another 3,000 to 4,000 on top of that. You used to be able to add almost
mostly well-to-do out-of-towners with the residents are staying at the ski resort.
Sure, it's mostly out. I mean, if you own a second home here, right? I mean, you're right now, the average house runs right around $725,000.
Yeah, which means you got to be able to afford nearly $1 million for a house.
You have to be making in excess of $200,000 to afford that kind of investment. Really.
Unless you're grandfathered in by local economics and personal history in the town, long-term residence, whatever. Imagine most of them aren't poor either, though.
No, we have a fairly decent number of people in poverty. I mean,
well, most towns do. I'm not saying not.
Which is a disturbing fact when you have only 1,708 residents.
It is. I mean, that's why wouldn't you be able to take care of everybody in such a small city? Especially when you have so many rich people.
Well, rich people love to donate when it gives them an edge. Right? I like to call it the philanthropy trap.
Tax, but the tax base and all this, they say. Surely if you have all these rich people paying property taxes in a resort town, you have a good tax base.
We have what you might call an overassessed value, right? So we got
yes,
we got like
I'm familiar with this problem.
we got $1.4 billion worth of housing supposedly
Mhm.
in value, but you get taxed at 2%, 2.7% roughly. It's going to go up a little bit this year because of variations in the what they call the adjustment factor that New York uses, the equalization rate. And we went from 61 down to 59. So that's going to bump it up. So they only actually tax you on 61% of your housing value.
So it's they've got built-in caps like California with Prop 13.
We've got caps and we've got this, and that was designed originally to try and augment the fact that communities outside of New York, their school taxes were rising faster than their property values were.
Yeah.
So this was their big scheme. It just makes one of the world's hardest tax issues.
And
it's so
and that
complex.
That would also then make it extremely attractive for people with money to come in and overspend for houses they will then be undertaxed on.
It does. So
benefits some of the people who are in monetary trouble and lets them sell out, so to speak.
Oh yeah, it does that. I mean, that's the that's the story, right? That's I'm sorry, but you just have to move on. Sell your property to me. So we're promoting the fact that we made like 22 million in increased value in our properties, right?
Sure.
But if you actually do the taxes, right, for the town, it works out to be a little bit over 59,000. That's it.
That's when you think about that, that's really disappointing considering. Because even if it's a town of only officially 1,700 rich people, it would seem like property taxes on all the temporary residents should be able to pay for all the town's needs by itself.
You'd have
maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit. Maybe I don't completely understand real estate value. I'll admit that.
No, you're pretty close. I mean, it pays for most of it. But here's the thing: one of the ways you keep rich people coming is you tell them that you're not going to increase your taxes too much.
Yeah. Or like Puerto Rico, you tell them that, hey, move here, you won't even have to pay taxes.
That's right. Well, we haven't gotten that bad yet. So we have this. But, I mean, it's just ridiculous, right? I mean, so we have all these empty houses, very low population, people that aren't living here full time. And they want to keep it that way because that's good for them, right? I mean, their primary residence is taxing them enough. They live in Jersey, those taxes are through the roof. They live in New York City, they're high. So they don't want to pay 10 or 12,000 like they probably should here.
Well, I'm sorry. That's what happens when you're wealthy. You have a responsibility to pay society back for everything society's done to make you wealthy.
Well, they don't see it that way. After all, they're wealthy, right? I mean, society.
And so there goes my disillusionment with Humphrey Bogart's great speech about liberal capitalism in Sabrina.
Yeah, but that's the wrong move. Of course he's going to say that, right? I mean, he's not going to say, I've been stealing this money from the worker all year long.
Yeah, I own a mining company in Wyoming. Do you really expect me to be ethical?
That's right. Of course, I made sure the safeties weren't on those mines.
My favorite.
But so that's what we do. We keep on promoting this, right? But and that's been our big shtick, right? For like 50 years now, has been build, right? So you get to this kind of like YIMBY and NIMBY problem, right?
Yes.
And we're in the YIMBY problem. We're in the NIMBY problem, right? Because now we want to put zoning in. And so we don't want people to be able to backfill all these little slots and these little spaces and put housing they can't.
You don't want multifamily housing on any units in Wyndham.
No, that's you say the word multi-generational, multifamily. That's like you might as well just.
But I don't see the YIMBY movement arguing for gentrifying Wyndham. I don't see them saying we should build density on Wyndham Mountain.
Well, they did.
Oh, did they?
They did build density on Wyndham Mountain. That was cool, right? That was where it was cool to have a condo and be 2 feet away from your neighbor, right?
Okay.
Because that's where the parties are, right? That's where the club nature is. That's it, right? Now, after that, now we're getting to the point where people are moving away from that, and they want to have the big 5 acre.
They want to have they want to be able to enjoy all that land in that little rural town.
But we don't have that much land anymore. We sold it all off, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
So now we're fighting over the scraps. We're filling in the scraps with these plans for, 30 houses on 100 acres.
Wow. And they're and wanting to bring, and all of them second homes for rich folks in New York City and Los Angeles.
Well, I don't know about Los Angeles. I don't think we get too many bi-coastal, but we definitely get Jersey, Connecticut.
Well, I don't know. I bet Josh Kelly's bi-coastal.
Josh Kelly?
No, Josh Riley. Sorry,
Josh Riley out of he's our representative.
No, I'm sorry. The Clinton guy. I'm sorry, but the
Josh
Clinton
King?
guy's bi-coastal. Josh King. Yes, I'm getting all the Joshes confused.
He lives down in Soho, from what I understand.
But if he's a Clinton guy, that means he spends a certain amount of time every year with his buddies in L.A. around Hollywood and the Clinton Donor.
I'm sure he's off at that that big retreat they have in in the Russian River, whatever that is.
Oh, I'm sure. Hanging out with Laureen Powell Jobs at the Emerson Collective, saying hi to Arnie Duncan.
That's right. Cross-dressing in the woods.
I don't care what they do in the woods.
I know, but I just always find that I always find that so hysterical. All these big homophobes, right?
Well, but that's the whole thing. Is there's a form of cross-dressing that is distinctly
homophobic,
misogynistic, and homophobic, as practiced by, say, Rudy Giuliani.
That's right. And even Merle, what was his name? Who did it?
Milton Berle.
That
Uncle Milty, yeah.
But I'm just saying that it's so funny. All these guys are like, you have a cross. You have the drag queen storybook hour for a kid, right?
Yeah. That's why that's why they think drag queen story hour for a kid is always porno, because it's porno when they do it in their weird misogynistic homophobic way. That's
right.
But that's almost a whole nother topic, but it does sort of tee back into this whole idea of what the economy in these resort towns is built on.
It's built on clubs, exclusivity, right? I mean, that's what we're pushing towards, more and more exclusivity, right? 50 years ago, we were a middle class resort town, right?
Come to Wyndham and don't be bothered by the poors.
Right. We were plumbers. We were New York City firemen. We were those kind of people that wanted to come up and ski. Right?
The old-fashioned Catskills towns where people had to open up their own resorts for their own sort of class because everything that existed before was for the rich.
Right. And so now we're reverting back to the more wealthy, right? We don't want to see, the Kias on Main Street. We want to see the Mercedes-Benz, the Land Rovers, because they're going to pay a hell of a lot more, right? I mean, who's going to pay $1,000 a night at a hotel?
I mean, that sort of debutante, socialite, high-rung, low-level millionaire is sort of the middle class now, aren't they?
It is. Yeah, they are. I mean, and that's who we're attracting. I mean, we've got properties on our Main Street that are valued at $2.2 million. They're selling at. We have a foundation. This is just a foundation. This has nothing on top of it. It's actually got small trees growing in the bottom of it because they didn't pour the actual slab on the floor. And they still want $1.8 million for the property. It's been sitting there for 3 years. But I mean, that's the kind of market we're sitting in, right? After the pandemic, everyone had this exploded real estate value in their head, and they won't come down from it.
Everybody wants to become a millionaire because of their real estate investments, and they don't realize that the way you become a millionaire on your real estate investments is to sell out before the bottom falls out. They want to be able to hold on to it forever, but still become a millionaire.
Or the ones that do want to sell are not willing to sell it at a loss because they bought it at such a inverted price now.
They're not willing to sell based on the real price of the real estate now. Sure. They have to sell at an inflated value in order to get their stuff out of it.
So you get the same kind of situation that happened in Florida during 2008, right? You get all these multi-million-dollar mansions that sit vacant.
Yep.
And that's what we're careening towards. I mean, people are not buying. But everyone still wants the houses up. The job market can't support the houses that we do have. So we got to start building new houses, unfortunately, right? I mean, usually I don't promote building new houses because it's unnecessary in most cases.
But you've got, at the very least, you have to either build houses that people can't afford or somehow remodel and subdivide the existing housing into multifamily units.
Right. But I mean, no one is going to sell you a house at low enough to make that even affordable again.
Well, I mean, if the right people were elected to city government, something could potentially be done about
Sure.
it.
There's a couple pieces of properties that I plan on doing that with. Exactly that. Right. One was an old B&B. Right, it could easily become 8 apartments, which would vastly improve our main street.
And this is the part of vacancy truthing that people miss. It's not just that we have all those vacancies out there that we should be filling. It's that the reason we have all these vacancies out here is because piratical real estate investors are hoping to still make money off of bad investments by just holding on to the property long enough to sell it without having to lose any money.
That's
Eventually, they think someone will pay their price if they can just stick it out.
That's right, and that's what they've been doing.
And there are all sorts of ways for somebody to make temporary money off property now in the meantime between Airbnb and the last show I was talking about, the journalist I was talking to, Michael Frederick from New York City, actually an anti-YIMBY writer who specializes in housing, was talking about how people who were involved in the rent debt strike that he was writing about found themselves living in the same apartment that they were renting from and got evicted from when they had to pay for an Airbnb to live in. They ended up living in the same complex they had been evicted from, but paying more money through this backdoor A and B Airbnb arrangement because they have an eviction on their record and can't get a real place.
That's right. Once you have that eviction on your record, you're done for. It's worse than being bankrupt.
Imagine you're the landlord who owns that property. You get to evict the people and then make money off of their Airbnb sublet.
Yes, I know. I mean, it's double dipping.
And I hadn't really thought of that before that show last week, and it really made me think about this real estate problem even more deeply. And you just got to grab those properties and turn them into multifamily housing.
Sure, and we could do it very cheaply. I mean, there's a whole bunch of avenues of actually financing it that would not cost the taxpayer anything. I mean, revenue bonds, because they are going to be rented, so the rent can pay for itself. There's some low interest loans, but those are probably not going to be too accessible anymore due to Trump's gutting of the HUD department.
Yep.
So we got revenue bonds being probably our primary way of doing it. And once we do that, we can really pay for these houses and, make a couple of jobs too, repair, a supervisor, a repair person. So those are some
office guy, super maintenance. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So you got jobs, you got housing, you got it all rolled into one. And you got them on the main street, which means that they're going to now probably walk down to the little store we have on Main Street, and they're going to frequent that. So they're going to need more people to hire. So it's, but my opponent refuses to talk about Main Street economics and development, and it's bizarre.
He doesn't think. I'm sure your opponent doesn't think a town as small as Windham, New York, needs a main street. It should be able to just, make its living as a bedroom community for the wealthy of the country.
Sure, I think there's some of that, and I think there's also a disdain for the idea that the community needs to grow.
Well, yeah. Right? Well, they don't want to grow. They want to be small and insular, and somebody could be a big fish in a small pond that way.
True.
Local gentry. It's not quite the same, but it's very similar. I lived in the upper South, East Tennessee, Southwest Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
The local gentry there, a guy who owns 4 car dealerships, has a massive amount of economic and political power.
Yes, he does. He's probably like the biggest employer in
one of the biggest employers in the area. He supports his whole family. His family gets jobs through his dealerships. His family is taken care of by his business, but it doesn't necessarily do a lot for people who aren't a part of his clan.
No.
Because he's making money and everybody who works for him is related to him. So he's making money even when his employees are making money in a way.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's what you call the company town model, right? I mean, he owns the dealership. He owns probably whatever little affordable housing they do have. We have that situation with the Mountain Club, right?
That was the good news in my town, is that the guy who owned the property and the guy who owned the car dealerships were two different guys. And
very good.
And if you were able to stay on his good side, which obviously this is always the trick with any landlord, but if you were able to stay on his good side, he was less likely to exploit and abuse you than his competition a few towns over. So we had a fairly decent situation in that my wife had a fairly good job that was essentially with the state of Virginia.
Oh, that's good.
And we had a very sweet deal with a landlord in what was essentially a basement apartment under a strip mall.
Oh, wow. And
if you didn't mind the drawbacks of people in the hair salon upstairs walking around during the day,
if you're out at work,
we had a tremendous cut on rent. And because we were underground and between two other apartments, we had tremendously efficient energy bills. We didn't have huge electric bills ever. Smallest electric bills in our life.
True.
That's the sort of thing. When I think of density, obviously you can't do that in California, in LA or San Francisco. But there are so many places where you can do really energy efficient basement apartments under strip malls.
Yeah, you can. You can do a lot of stuff. I mean, just the question is, do you want to do them? And, and the big problem here is...
And this guy did want to do it for whatever reason. And I mean,
good.
It wasn't even like he was some magical, out of the goodness of his heart, affordable housing activist. He was just a landlord who wanted to make money by actually competing with the other landlords in this theoretical game that people are supposed to be playing. And he was able to do it because there was a market for affordable housing.
Sure, there's always a market for affordable housing. That's what people always say. Well, was there a market for it? I'm like, are you kidding me? Of course there's a market for it.
And he was doing really, really well off of this.
Yes.
And he was able to do really, really well despite treating people fairly well for a landlord. Which is not to say that he did not exploit or mistreat people who he believed broke his rules. You had to stay on his good side. You had to keep the boss happy if you wanted to enjoy the benefits.
And therein lies the biggest issue of all.
Exactly.
The capricious nature of having a landlord tell you, what the rules really are.
Exactly.
Which is why I prefer to actually,
we had such a long-term relationship with him that we reached the point where we were able to say, we're not actually going to follow your rules. Do you want us to stay here or leave?
Wow. What happened?
And we said, we want a cat. We're going to keep the cat. We don't care that you have a no pets rule.
And what did he say?
Ultimately, there wasn't really anything he could do about it but evict us. And what's he going to do? Evict people who are paying him consistently for 10 years?
Sure, but I mean, people do it.
I know people do it, but in this situation,
it wasn't cost effective for him.
In this situation, it would not have been cost effective for him to actually evict us over our cat. Not considering the money that he knew he could get to us until if we didn't move somewhere else. Sure. Now, ultimately, we had the last laugh because we moved somewhere else anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, overall, you have to make these things equitable, right? And so,
yes,
and that's another reason why I would prefer the town to own the housing.
No, people shouldn't have to risk eviction because they want a cat.
Right, but but ultimately, because if the town owns the housing, right, we can run at a much lower profit margin. Right, we do have to have some profit in it so that we can save up for repairs and other things.
Yeah, of course.
That are just necessary.
There has to be a way to get money to pay for everything somehow.
But you don't need to have the extra profit, which is, the landlord going out to eat every night or buy the new car he wants, right? We don't need that kind of profit margin.
The landlord's operation is, well, I want a renter to pay my mortgage.
Right.
And
the new car.
Yeah, well, but it starts with, I want someone else to pay my mortgage. I want to own this house, but I don't really want to pay for it myself.
Yeah. I don't want to pay for the daily maintenance of it and all this other stuff.
And then it moves on to, well, I want to own this house, but I also want to make a little extra money off of it in addition to not really having to pay for it.
Then that's what, the economists use, that confusing term, I think, for most people. That's the real economic rent, that extra bit.
The
squeezed out. That
the
allows
extra,
you to buy,
well, the
allows
extra,
you to buy the next property and the next property and the next property and then the.
And this is what David Harvey would call destroying space to preserve capitalism.
That's right. So we have that problem in our community, right? And people, I've kind of just given up on it when I go around. People say, "Oh, do you really think we can do something about it?" I said, "Yeah, we really can. And here are the properties we can buy right away, and we can turn them into housing. We've got 22 kids graduating from our grad class next year. Some of them are going to go to college. Some of them are not. We need to find the housing for the ones that aren't, if they don't want to live at home anymore, that is affordable, that can get a job. And I'm hoping that people will listen to me on this issue, because it's really depressing to think that, there's no one wanting to stay in town.
I hadn't really thought about this until recently in terms of small towns, because most of my thinking about urbanism is, of course, about big cities.
Sure, that's where most of the literature is.
But if you think about it, what you're describing, where we were a small town, so our biggest resource was our rural land, but we only had so much rural land because we're a small town. Mm-hmm. And then but that's really like the sort of absolute poster child for this urbanist theory of someone like Harvey, where you're destroying space, which is your only real asset, in order to preserve this capitalist system that collects rent on that space.
Yes, exactly. It's a perfect example of it.
And I think our real political challenge, in the most direct, visceral level, when it comes to actually building power in the imperial core, comes to be physically reclaiming and holding that space somehow, whether it's through the actual existing political power structure, or whether it's through some squatting movement outside the power structure, or some combination of both.
Most likely it's going to have to be from the bottom up.
Yes.
I mean, the problem with our political situation is, yes, I want to get into the town supervisor position so I can start opening up things and start making it possible. But nothing will be done unless I can get a grassroots group underneath it to really push, because I got four other people who are diehard Republicans who hate anything that's...
If you can get in touch with her, I know who it might be useful to talk to as far as organizing that sort of thing.
Sure, who is it?
Sherry Honkala. She's based out of Philadelphia. She runs an organized squatting movement called the Poor People's Army.
Yeah.
It was Jill Stein's vice presidential candidate in like 2012 or something like that. She's actually doing something useful with what political money and influence she has, with actually funding and leading squatting movements in inner city Philadelphia.
Well, that's what we need, right? We just need a rural version of it.
And those are the sort of movements that I see, along with groups like the Debt Collective and this rent debt strike they're doing now, and tenants unions and any rent strikes they can muster on a local level. That's where I see the future being right now. Is this
it has to be
this sort of geographical and anthropological fight over our spaces and getting them back.
Sure, we have to. I mean, I live in a town with 1,708 people, like I told you, but only represents 32.9% of the number of houses we have.
Yeah.
And most of the other houses that are owned are vacant 67.1% of the time, and 88% of those vacancies are due to the fact that they're just rentals.
Yep.
Part-time, short-term rentals owned by some company. You go look at the tax maps, and you'll see house after house after house owned by some company with LLC in its title.
And that means that the shareholders of the company that own that house have more power in the town than those 1,700 full-time residents, doesn't it?
Sometimes it does, but I mean, there might not be any shareholders in an LLC, but
it might be one guy who's just got a front to take legal responsibility.
Right. I mean, but what it says is that he's going to use that like a corporate. That's a corporate asset to him.
Yes.
So he's going to work that asset as long as it's profitable, and then once it's not profitable, he's going to dump it and leave that town and leave it however he finds it. Right. I mean,
there's a Latin word for this: democracy, ruled by the biggest landlord.
That's right. Also, why you had plebeian strikes all the time.
Yes. But I always loved that word, democracy.
That's right. It's one you have to use too often, and
but
when you do,
and it hurts too, because Plato misappropriated the word to make it mean rule by the famous, when it really biggest landlords.
Well, usually they are famous, right? I mean, think about it.
I can't even blame Plato, though. It's probably a mistranslation from Greek into Latin by some monk in Switzerland or France who was just drawing the shapes and didn't really read Latin.
I don't know about that. It depends on the years. I mean, a lot of those monks were really proficient in Latin.
Some of them were, and some of them were brilliant artists who were just drawing what they saw.
Sure, I mean that's what happens. I mean, you got all types, but that's what we have, right? I mean, that's literally, you're right. We're moving towards a democracy, right? We're moving towards that renter only. It even says it in our comprehensive plan, right? I mean, this is a quote from our comprehensive plan. Windham as a community is becoming a majority second homeowner.
Yes.
Right. I mean, so what does that tell you? I mean, it tells you that there's no
absentee.
residents.
That means absentee residents, absentee homeowners, absentee landlords.
And what it also means is that people who don't care if your school has 200 kids or 2,000 kids. In fact, they prefer 200 kids or less, because then their taxes go down.
And their kids aren't going to that school anyway. So what do they care how much money each student gets?
That's right. Well, that's the other thing. Well, we unfortunately, but that's where we're a little crazy too. We're spending $15.6 million, I think, right now, on a school with 281 to 285 kids, K through 12.
Now that sounds like a huge money per student percentage,
but
how much of it is actually getting to the student level?
All right. Well, now that's the right question, right? How much that works out to be something like $50,000, $52,000 per student, but like 46 of it turns out to be paid in administrative costs and building.
This is why the private partnership will always be less efficient than just public ownership.
This is a public school.
Oh, public. Well, that's true. Public school.
This is a public school, but
that's a huge administrative cost.
Well, that's because, think about this, right? Where I live, there's 7 close towns.
Mm-hmm.
The total population of the whole area is roughly 7,000 people.
Yeah.
School age students, roughly 700, more or less.
Yep.
That's if you count in the homeschoolers and some others that go out. Normally, that would be one school district.
One consolidate. Yeah. If we were talking about inner city Los Angeles, one consolidated school district would be massively larger than that.
Right, but I mean that would be one school in any other part of it, right?
Any other place except someplace the rich people live or don't live.
It's not because of rich people. It's because these towns don't get along, right?
Yeah.
They have this strong identity, right? So
Yeah.
so these little high schools become
There's
very important. Yeah.
There's a quote. This is Clarence Darrow talking about baseball back in the early 20th century, late 19th century. The idea that some mercenary would play baseball for money instead of patriotism was repellent to me. Like, why would somebody from my town go somewhere else to play baseball for money? That's treason. There are enemies.
That's right. Yeah, the whole same thing, right? You mean these little towns have a really strong identity, and the schools became
in Appalachia. In Appalachia, high school football was such a serious religion, and it's like, dudes, you should only have 3 high schools in this whole area. You shouldn't be able to support a football league.
That's right, but we have to have that, right?
Yeah.
But it makes no sense given the population sizes and the amount of money we're spending. So we have a building principal, a superintendent. We have all our own buses.
And in the right high school football culture, you have a spending on the high school football team that starts to look like the spending on a college team versus the spending on the rest of the university.
Right, you absolutely do. We don't have that.
That's good.
But that's what we're going for, right? And all these second homeowners, they don't care, right? I mean, they're not going to really care that Wyndham, has a strong belief system that we deserve to have our own high school that sits on our main street. They'll tell you, you know what, if you can't afford it, right, and we move out, tough luck. Better go join up with that school, Hunter Townersville, right? I mean, you better become consolidated. And you can't really get people to really understand this. If you don't want to see those changes happen, we're going to have people here. We're going to have to grow our main street. We're going to have to grow our local businesses, grow those things. And it's been kind of an upward battle, but I think it's getting through finally. That we can't let our population age out into extinction.
If we want to have a town, we have to have people in the town. We have to have working people in the town. We have to have an economy built on something other than just paying rent to landlords.
Yep, and skiing. Right. I mean,
well, skiing in the end becomes another sort of, the nature of a resort is that that vacation purchase is just another sort of way of paying rent to landlords.
Sure. And it's also a very low end pay scale, right? I mean, because you want to maximize a short period of time, and you have to have a lot of overhead to make the experience what you want it to be.
This is where, when we get into these rural situations, and Henry George suddenly starts to make a lot of sense about some sort of public entity being the sole landlord.
Right, it does sort of. Yeah, George is, I mean, you don't want to say too many crazy things like split level taxation, right? Although that would do us a world of good.
Land value tax.
Yeah, right. I mean, if you well, I mean, more like something more like what South Carolina does.
Yeah,
would be more applicable for us.
True.
Because
you don't want to necessarily incentivize industrialization in Windham Mountain.
Right. But we want to decentivize second home ownership.
Yeah.
And we want to increase primary home ownership. And,
tax breaks for people who live there and tax penalties for people who don't.
That's right. And really, they should be paying more. Right.
Yeah.
They build bigger houses that use up more resources.
You're using our town's resources as a luxury. You owe our town more rent.
That's right. You like rent so much. Here's how it works in reverse.
Yeah, you have to. The landlords have to pay our town if they're using our town's land and resources to make money.
Sure, and I mean there are a bunch of people. I mean the Airbnb market is upside down here.
Of course.
Again, I mean during the pandemic they made a ton of money.
Of course,
because everyone was running away from
traditional hospitality.
I was saying it was like, to me, it read like all those things you read about, like the Black Plague, where all the rich people got out of London.
Well, I will still believe that one of the biggest reasons that everything opened up again is because the big the big Democratic interests on both the casino side and the hospitality union side in Las Vegas just could not continue to not operate without some sort of major support for all those working people that the state of Nevada was not willing to provide, and that the federal government was unable to provide. And so instead, we just end the pandemic conditions so that Nevada can go back to normal.
I would say that wasn't the only one. I would say that every major downtown.
Yeah, that's true too. Empty office space, losing money for corporate landlords.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the corporations loved it because they were saving a whole bunch of money, putting all their costs on their employees. Yeah. For them, they were thinking. But on the downside, right, all the restaurants were going out of business.
Yeah.
That no longer had hotels. So, and the government did not want to do anything to pay for that.
The government didn't want to do anything to help ordinary people on the most basic level. They just wanted to have various bailout policies for business owners affected by shutdowns.
And if you notice, right, I mean, notice how corrupt that system became.
That system was so corrupt that more people stole money from it than got actual bailouts. I mean, even if, and the idea of bailing out business,
I still want to know what Jimmy Dore got.
That's a really good question, because I mean, to the best of my knowledge, his employees are himself and his wife,
and maybe somebody else that does research for him. But you can do research at home, so he never had to actually have the guy there.
Well, my belief, and I could be wrong about this, but this is just based on the fact that during the period where he was blocking me, but using my content to make money on his show by sharing my tweets, that he was blocking me, but his wife was following me, which means I'm pretty sure his wife was doing all his research too.
She must have used her middle name on the application.
I don't know.
All I know is thing, right? You're talking about
researcher and doing. She's doing a lot. She deserves a lot of credit for his show that she doesn't get.
Oh, I don't disagree, but I'm just saying. But that was like the perfect example of a show that literally should never have had a bailout because
there was nothing to stop. They didn't lose anything.
That's right.
Them getting bailout money in itself was corrupt.
That's right. I mean,
Jimmy Dore actually did well off the pandemic in an economic sense, as far as his convenient sellout to RFK Jr. interests until RFK Jr. came out as a Zionist, and then backing off of RFK Jr. personally, but still repeating all that same bullshit from his people.
But sure, I mean, but even more, he benefited from the fact that everyone else, right? A lot of people no longer were doing anything, so they could watch his content over and over and over again, driving up his stats.
That was my friends at Not Safe for Wonks, which is now defunct because of various managerial and internal disputes. Sad that that's the way so much of our industry works this way, but my friends at Not Safe for Wonks were doing a massive amount of shows during the early shutdown period. They were doing great. They had lots of, it was their high point, and then the bottom fell out of the podcast industry for a lot of people when pandemic conditions ended, and nobody was able to watch independent media or had time or money to spare for independent media anymore.
That's right. I mean, everything was going great for them. I mean, and that's the kind of problem with those kind of programs. When you reimburse landlords, it never trickles down.
I didn't apply for any bailout money because my show's a one-person operation, but clearly I should have been crooked.
Well, did you have any tax returns? I mean,
I could have.
You should have, right? I mean, you should write it off, right? It's a tax loss.
That's the big problem is I don't pay the kind of aggressive attention to my taxes that I should.
Yeah, well,
and I actually end up paying my taxes. It's terrible.
It is, but that's what I'm getting at, right? I mean, but it's the same way with affordable housing, right? You give tons and tons of money to these middlemen corporations that supposedly manage it, and why can't a town just manage it? I mean, the jobs we would create would be a lot better.
town, a county, a state,
see?
whatever the most effective way of funding it is, combined with the most basic and democratic way of making the people most affected by living conditions there make the decisions.
And if you create a housing cooperative, right, the town is one part of it, right? They're one stakeholder. All the renters become the other parts of the stakeholders. The employees have their own stake in it. And you just agree, and you can work.
And you have democratic organizations, democratic systems put where these groups can mediate their issues.
Right. So you don't have the conflict, and you don't have the issues, right? You don't have the worrying about, the costs, right? Because no one's going to try and screw each other.
Worker tenant democracy.
Yeah. I mean, I don't understand it, but we're so obsessed with this idea that we have to have, this private-public partnership. And really, the public part of the partnership is just enough, right? You don't want the private, because the private guy always has to make a profit on it, right? To make it worth his while to stay in the business. And that distorts the prices.
Exactly, because that need to constantly, we'll use rent as an example again, since we're talking about a place where land is the premium commodity. Mm-hmm. The more rent you collect, the more overhead you spend, and the more rent you need to collect.
Yes, that's right.
And so there's a law of diminishing returns that, again, as we said, requires the destruction of space to turn space into money.
That's right. Well, I mean, and how we destroy the space is that we keep on selling it in larger and larger plots to single people,
who then subdivide it into smaller and smaller bits. Or don't.
Because that's the beauty of what zoning does, right?
That's true.
Zoning puts a limit on that, right?
Yeah.
If we went smaller and smaller and smaller, right, the prices would go down.
So why are and we don't see the YIMBYs trying to prevent this kind of prohibitionary zoning on Windham Mountain? We see them trying to prohibit this kind of prohibitionary zoning in New York City.
Right. Well, probably because they need they want their little cut of the alpine lifestyle 2 hours away.
Yeah. Which, I mean, from a democratic point of view,
it should all be rented.
The alpine lifestyle is to exist, and working class and middle class people should have the same right to that alpine lifestyle as everyone else.
Well, they should, but you can't do that when your alpine lifestyle sits on a small little ridge that's only maybe 1.5 miles long.
And when you've modified that alpine lifestyle to maximize the way that private entities can profit off it.
Yeah, and that's true. I mean, I mean, ideally, if those were all rental properties, right, and everyone could only rent so many times a year, then it would be fair and democratic, right? It'd be like kind of like a big lottery, right? Your number comes up, you get your number, you get to rent, you get your 2 weeks, fine.
Which is the system that a lot of towns like the Catskills used to use back in the day. Resort towns, and also some of the North Carolina resort towns for only black clienteles would use lottery systems too.
Well, yeah, that's what happens when you have so many people, and you have to keep your prices down so that you can't afford. But that's the thing, right? We've discovered that we don't have to keep our prices down. The limiting the number of properties is really important because that only drives up the prices.
Yep.
And that's what we're looking at.
And in theory, as long as the prices are going up, growth is infinite. Yay, capitalism!
Well, that's what we tell ourselves, right? Because we tell ourselves these silly numbers like, oh wow, the property value assessment's gone up 22 million, and but they really don't want you to say, wait a minute, let me go to my tax form and say, oh wait, 22 million divided by 1,000 times 2.7% is 59,000. Doesn't sound so great then, right? You mean you're like, well, wait a minute, I'm being priced out of the market, and this town only didn't even make $100,000 in extra taxes to support. I mean, how is it they're going to afford employees to work in the public works department? And the answer is we can't. We can't do it, and we're going to have to. We're going to have to start competing with other towns to start getting people to come in here. And because Greene County overall is losing, that's the county I live in, Windham is in Greene County, New York, we're losing 120 people per 1,000. We're going to lose out to have to fight and try and import them from other counties, which means only even higher costs, right? You're traveling 50 minutes to go to work, right? You got to pay more.
And then you get into this situation where you have poorer workers coming into wealthier towns.
That's right.
And being surrounded by all sorts of incentives to take from the wealthy instead of work for them. And then you have a crime problem with sometimes.
I don't know.
And if you do, you made it for yourself by driving by driving everybody out and then making them come back into work.
True. I don't know about the crime problem to be driven by that so much, but what you have is the worst problem is that you just have people that just decide to move away from your state, your county, and they just go, they move to Tennessee or North Carolina or wherever they can find affordable housing and a job.
Well, I'm not talking necessarily about a real crime problem. I'm talking about a perceived crime problem from the wealthy.
That is. Well, I mean, one wealthy person gets broken into, probably next to, where some kid hits a golf ball through it and says.
Or even if somebody sees a homeless person light up a cigarette on the street and decides that homeless person is really smoking fentanyl.
Yes. What? We don't have the Young Turks here yet.
Well, that's the general YIMBY fear line about the homeless in San Francisco and New York.
I know.
Everybody who smokes is a dangerous fentanyl smoking junkie who might murder me for my fortune.
That's right. I mean, but yeah, we have that fear of the homeless, right? I mean, that's why they don't want affordable housing, right? That's why you have to always coach it in these, crazy terms of middle class. No, I mean, yeah, middle class need help too, but we're talking about helping everybody from zero to, way past the median income to get a house.
And as I have said before, one thing that I will always agree with Marxists about is that the term middle class is so squishy and meaningless as to almost not be usable in America for the simple reason that if you go by Marx's definition and by the definition of our political leadership, our middle class are millionaires. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you go by our sort of socio-political definition in the public sphere, the middle class is a working small business owner who isn't a millionaire yet.
Yeah, I mean, it is a very, very distorted concept.
I think there's also an understanding sometimes of how many small business owners actually are millionaires and actually do have very gentrified interests despite supposedly being the middle class.
The small business is another useless term because no one ever defines it.
That guy who owns 4 car dealerships is a small business owner, according to the guy who owns Ford.
That's right.
Well, the CEO of Ford, I should say.
Right. I mean, is it population of number of workers you have in your, or is it gross profits? Right. I mean,
in the interest of bringing feudalism up again, it should also be noted that the Ford and Firestone families have married into each other, and that the current mogul of the Ford family is a woman whose married name is Firestone Ford.
I like how she hyphenated it.
Yes.
Wouldn't want to let Henry Ford's misogynist, racist memory go down.
We've got to keep the Ford name in there with Firestone, especially since we colluded to destroy public transportation in California together.
Everywhere.
Well, everywhere, but I mean, the Who Framed Roger Rabbit Cloverleaf Corporation was the front for Ford and Firestone, and
I know, but I'm just saying,
Chevron.
They got GM did it in Philadelphia.
Yes.
They couldn't do it in New York because of the subways, but
there's also a whole thing about how every major car manufacturer invested in the Auto Club of America to build car culture.
That's
and
right.
how even things like the Green Book, which is a wonderful thing for Black travelers to keep them safe in the difficult times of segregation. The Green Book was heavily funded by car companies who wanted to sell cars through Black dealerships too.
Oh yeah, except for maybe Ford. He was really
Ford
racist.
didn't mind selling Model Ts to barnstorming baseball teams.
No, he didn't.
Even if they were Black, their money was good too, as long as he didn't have to sit with them.
I don't know, man. Maybe it was Jews. He had a real problem with Jews. I mean,
he did.
He used to put all those papers out in his dealerships.
Ford believed in the Jewish communist conspiracies. I know you had a hard hour, so I'm going to ask you now if there's what you want to promote, knowing it's your campaign.
Well, just come to my website, Connor Exum, Bull Moose Party of Wyndham, Substack, and you can read all my papers, see what's going on. And just 1 week left, and I got to.
And I know it seems like it shouldn't, like a local race in a quote unquote rich resort town shouldn't matter, but I mean this is the sort of economy that we have to be able to sort of recapture for people.
We do have to recapture them, and we have to make these things. I mean, I got this slogan I kind of stole from Trump because everyone here's a hardcore Republican. They call it "Make Wyndham Local Again."
Yeah,
and that really is it. We got to bring people back in to live, and we got to make it possible for them to live. And that means affordable housing, affordable, healthcare, all the things that you associate with being able to live. We need to have, and there's no such thing as a community that's too small to do it. If we focus on doing it ourselves in the right way with local spending and local stuff, we can really actually do it.
And it feels like that's the sort of thing that we have to do. That if we're really serious about taking back our spaces, then we have to take back our spaces in the big city and the small town and the farming community, the resort community, everywhere.
Everywhere. You're absolutely right. And now I got to go off and give a little talk about zoning to my fellow neighbors and citizens to get them on board. Thank you.
You go do that. You have a great Sunday. Hopefully we'll be able to do this again, and I'll just do a little monologue here for everybody else. Thanks, Connor.
It was great being on.
Great having you. So, folks, I want everybody to remember the name that I mentioned earlier, because if you want to Google one thing and maybe look up some interesting books, David Harvey is a great place to start. If you're familiar with the work of David Graeber, the late anthropologist who did anarchism, then you will probably like David Harvey because he is a geographer who does Marxism. I definitely recommend his stuff about the freedom to the city and taking back our space from the wealthy because they destroy it to make themselves more money. I think that's the answer to a lot of the nakedly capitalistic and deregulatory discussions we're seeing in liberal politics around housing right now. Is we have to have these movements to take back our space and to geographically take control of our cities again. Democratic geography, democratic anthropology, democratic sociology. From resort towns like Wyndham, New York, to big cities like Los Angeles, California, and everything in between. Urbanism isn't actually a bad idea, but we have to do urbanism right and understand that we need people's spaces. We need people's homes. We need people's lives, and we don't need the people's stick to beat us for the ruling class. On that note, I want to thank everybody for joining us this week. I hope to be back next week with another returning champion, Seth Sturm, so that should be really good. And I hope in the meantime, everybody has a great week. Until next time, I'll tweet at you.